Similar to Ryan Grimm, Piers Morgan, I guess, likes to get humiliated. I don't know. I guess he likes to get that firm smack in the mouth. A firm slap. A nice firm slap, right? Because he got humiliated. So I want to pull up this interview that he did. And it's quite hilarious because, of course, he's going to say, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn it? Let's go ahead and play it.
You know quite well, I know quite well, your viewers know quite well that the Israeli regime is carrying out genocide. And this stems from an ethno-supremacist ideology. It stems from apartheid. And this is unacceptable. And the people who lived on that land, they have been expelled. The people in Gaza, they live in a concentration camp, now a death camp. And the West has brought about this situation. Whatever crimes that they've committed against Jews and Gypsies and Slavs, they have to pay for it themselves. They can't take it out on the Palestinian people. So the Iranians, along with almost everyone else in the world, except for some people in your part of the world, believe that the apartheid regime has to come to an end. And by coming to an end, it means that all people of that land have to be able to live as equal human beings. I know that sounds very crazy, but ethno-supremacism isn't a good thing.
But the position of the Iranian regime is that Israel shouldn't exist, right?
Well, the position of the British regime is that Israel as an apartheid state should continue to exist. The position of the American regime is that Israel is...
If you could, look, that wasn't the question I asked you, but is the position of Iran's regime...
I'm answering.
That is, yeah, but what is the answer to that question?
Piers. You got the answer. And look, I understand. You're just following the orders. Because, AIPAC's got its influence on you. I get it. I understand. Dude. But, it's pretty sooner or later, like, you got to realize that, people are dying over there in Gaza. They're starving to death over there.
I'm getting there. The position of the American regime is that apartheid should continue. Iran's position on South Africa had the same gap. There was the same gap back then when the British and the Americans supported apartheid in South Africa and racial supremacism in the South African region, Zimbabwe today, and so on. Back then, Iran was supporting the indigenous population. Back then, Iran supported the ANC. Back then, Iran supported the military wing of the ANC and Nelson Mandela.
But we're not talking about South Africa. I'm talking about what is Iran's regime's current position in relation to Israel.
The Iranians believe that Israel does not have moral legitimacy as an apartheid regime. And the only way that it can gain legitimacy is that if apartheid is cast aside, if ethno-supremacism is cast aside, if racial and religious discrimination in the sense that Muslims and Christians are lesser human beings and they don't have any right to the land that they've been on for hundreds of years, that should be set aside. People who have been expelled have the right of return. It's not very complicated. It's not, as you say, rocket science.
Well, it may not be complicated to you, but what looks complicated to us is that what Iran has been doing in the last few years, if not decades.
It's both sides, okay? Because, if you're going to be pointing at Iran, fair enough, go ahead. You have that right to do so. But you also have to look at the actions for Israel. Israel isn't that poor person like, oh, woe is me. Oh, why are all these troubles happening? Israel's also instigating it too. It's both sides, okay? Not one side's an angel and the other one's a bad guy. Not one side's a saint and the other one's a sinner. Get over yourself. That's Wile E. Coyote logic. That's Saturday morning cartoon logic. No one's got time for that, Piers. But do you bloody well condemn Hamas?
Has been supporting via proxy groups like the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, funding and helping to train them to commit acts of war against Israel, firing endless rockets, and as we saw on October the 7th, committing an act of heinous terrorism. So it's not quite as simple as you're trying to picture this, is it? Iran has had a vested interest in supporting terror against Israel for a very long time.
No, I think the regimes that have a vested interest in supporting terrorism are the ones who are giving the Israeli regime the weapons to carry out genocide. And the genocide began long before October the 7th. And the Gaza Strip was a concentration camp long before October the 7th. You know as well as I that October the 7th didn't occur in a vacuum. And the terrorism has been carried out regularly by the Israeli regime on the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip for decades. It regularly bombed them and killed them. And it's not just the Gaza Strip. I think roughly 400 Palestinians have been murdered in the West Bank over the past 6 months. These are regular occurrences, but it doesn't register in the West because, again, the Israelis they are European. It's a European colony. They have priorities over the brown people of the land. But it is a fact that Palestinian children, according to the statements made by senior Israeli officials, Palestinian women, according to members of the Knesset, they are lesser people. If you look at the South African complaint, they clearly point out the views of these people and the starvation siege and the intention to starve the people of Gaza, women and children. That is because they look at them as inferior people. This is not about two armies. This is about a subjugated people trying to stand up for their rights. If you were in Germany,
And how would you? Let me ask you, Professor.
Now hold on, brace yourself for this one, because as we've had people post, and I want to pull up that message again from Joey Murphy, who wrote, "It is complicated because the media is instructed to provide problems, not solutions. The media is designed not to ask why this happened, but more of, well, it's pretty bad, and these people are bad guys, right? I wish we could do something, but what do you mean we have to do something? How can we do something when we're powerless to do anything at all? We've seen this play out before."
So let me ask you, Professor, how would you categorize what happened on October the 7th? Was that a terrorist attack?
No, it was a retaliation of a people who were imprisoned and who were starved and who were regularly battered, and people who were imprisoned
So you think, just to be clear, you think that the slaughter of 1,200 people, the raping, the maiming, the incinerating, the mass murder that went on that day by a group whose own spokesman, the Hamas spokesman, said days after that on television, on camera, that Hamas was wedded to committing the same act again and again and again, as often as it could, which actually is the purest personification of the genocide that you're talking about. You don't condemn that?
You're being dishonest. There is no evidence.
No, I'm not.
There's no evidence of rape, and I ask your viewers to
absolute
look
nonsense.
At,
yes, nonsense.
It's absolute nonsense that there's systematic rape, and if you are being dishonest intentionally, you are helping the Israeli regime continue its genocide by justifying it through dishonesty. So,
and you gotta love these dishonest actors, these pundits who constantly want to have access journalism. And by the way, folks, let's actually address the story here too. I got to be careful wording this because of YouTube's guidelines, but it's not only Piers Morgan who likes to get slapped around, but also a guy you might have heard of him, little known person named Ryan Grimm. Ryan Grimm, who is a very interesting fellow. So shout out to Buzzsaw Aaron Mate, making this timeline more complete. On January 10th, the Gray Zone identified glaring inconsistencies in that New York Times section, which relied on dubious witness to falsely claim that 2 teenage girls were assaulted. On March 4th, The Intercept got this spokesperson who is talking about that. Again, I cannot pronounce that, and I apologize for that, to confirm what we reported. And to which Ryan Grimm wrote, on March 4th, The Intercept broke the news that a key section of New York Times embattled screams without words was simply false. So on March 5th, Patrick Kingsley, the Times Journalism Bureau chief, removed Annette Swartz from the Bureau's WhatsApp chat since she's been served. To which Ryan Grimm then wrote, of course, or I actually be more precise, here's what Aaron Mate showed, because the Gray Zone was the first one to break it. So shout out to the Gray Zone, shout out to Aaron Mate. Ryan Grimm graciously says, Good for you, man. Does everything have to be this petty? Are you disputing anything I said? No, you're not. Are you aware that we've had private correspondence, which I have the ethics to not cite? Yes, you are. So ask yourself that question and slink away. Oof. Oh, slink away. What's happened to you? Ryan Grimm says, slink away. Slink away. Hold on. Wait. This is going to be better. Hold on. Check this out. Check this out, guys. Acting 101. Slink away? What's happened to you? Who hurt you? Why, Aaron Buzzsaw Mate, are you coming after me? It's me, Ryan Grimm. Can't you give me a break? What happened to you? Don't worry, we're going to turn right back to the Piers Morgan thing. Hold on. Aaron Mate responds back, sticking to what just happened, you called me petty for saying something accurate. Hence why, again, your question should be directed inward. An inward search. Ryan, you got this, baby. Inward search. Inward music. And he goes on to say, I called it petty because it was petty. I'm not talking about a quite specific chain of events. Not every tweet, I said teeth, sorry, stuttered there. Not every tweet needs to credit you. Well, Ryan, I didn't demand credit, says Aaron Mate. I added a relevant detail to your quite specific chain of events. Since you don't dispute that, there's no reason for you to object. Then Ryan Grimm writes, why didn't you include Mondoes in your timeline, given they publish the same points 5-6 weeks ahead of you? Does Mondoes stalk every one of your tweets and demand credit? Oh, boy. Oh. Why are you showing Jake Tapper? Ryan, why are you showing Jake Tapper here? Anyways, let's continue on. The January 10th Gray Zone article that I linked to the above credits Mondoes in detail, which underscores that, unlike some petty people, I credit others for their work, regardless of whether establishment media accepts them, and don't go out of my way to invent disingenuous excuses for not doing so. Damn. The headshot back to the left, man. Seriously. Aaron, dude, stop it. He's already dead. Stop it, Aaron. Stop it. No, but seriously, shout out to Aaron Mate in the Gray Zone who debunked that fake news story.
So that's up to you to decide. There's no evidence of systematic rape. And just like the beheadings,
there has been clear reported evidence of rape and sexual abuse against Israeli women. Clear, demonstrable evidence.
I refer you and your audience to the good work carried out by people at the Gray Zone.
Oof! Damn! Hold on, let's rewind that again. Piers walked into that one.
At Palestinian children, according to the statements made by senior Israeli officials, Palestinian women, according to members of the Knesset, they are lesser people. If you look at the South African complaint, they clearly point out the views of these people and the starvation siege and the intention to starve the people of Gaza, women and children. That is because they look at them as inferior people. This is not about two armies. This is about a subjugated people trying to stand up for their rights. If you were in Germany,
and how would you? Let me ask you, Professor. How would you categorize what happened on October the 7th? Was that a terrorist attack?
No, it was a retaliation of a people who were imprisoned and who were starved and who were regularly battered. And people who were imprisoned
so just to be clear, you think that the slaughter of 1,200 people, the raping, the maiming, the incinerating, the mass murder that went on that day by a group whose own spokesman, the Hamas spokesman, said days after that on television, on camera, that Hamas was wedded to committing the same act again and again and again, as often as it could, which actually is the purest personification of the genocide that you're talking about. You don't condemn that.
You're being dishonest. There is no evidence.
No, I'm not.
There's no evidence of rape, and I ask your viewers to
Absolute
look
nonsense.
at,
That's
yes,
nonsense.
it's absolute nonsense that there's systematic rape, and if you are being dishonest intentionally, you are helping the Israeli regime continue its genocide by justifying it through dishonesty. So that's up to you to decide. There's no evidence of systematic rape. And just like the beheadings,
There has been clear reported evidence of rape and sexual abuse against Israeli women. Clear, demonstrable evidence.
I refer you and your audience to the good work carried out by people at the Gray Zone.
Oh, this warrants it. Shout out to the Gray Zone.
Oof. Oof. Oof.
Piers, you get that? Oof.
At the Electronic Intifada, based in the United States. Many of them are people of they're excellent reporters, and you should invite them on your show to talk about these allegations.
I've talked to top reporters who've covered this.
Well,
but
talk to them
interested
too.
That you only.
You,
but
you
I'm also
have this
interested that
evidence.
you only. I'm also interested, Professor, that you only want to deny that there was rape. You don't want to deny the incineration or the beheading or the mass murder of Holocaust survivors, the kidnapping of several hundred people, including babies. I mean, do you condemn any of that, or do you think all of that is justified?
Look, Piers, you're trying to play with words, and that's fine as long as you're not trying to just. Well, you're playing because there is no evidence of beheadings. You're just taking the dishonest Israeli regime's account, which they have no evidence, and people have written articles about this.
There was demonstrable, proven evidence that people were beheaded. Provable evidence, and
so
more than that, we know from Hamas's own video coverage of what they were doing in real time that they proudly broadcast to the world. They didn't try and hide this. I'm just curious why you, who is so incensed by what you see as Israeli genocide, why you would not be equally incensed by genocidal behavior from Hamas that day.
No, you're not being honest, and that's where did they broadcast this footage of beheadings, the Hamas, to the world? Can you put it right now where you have?
I didn't say they broadcast the beheadings. There was evidence found of people who'd been beheaded. That was not broadcast. But what was broadcast was the one. I didn't say there was footage of the beheading. I said there was evidence found that people have
photos, videos, It's going to be important because right now, as I said before in the show many, many, many times, you could tell a constructed lie, a well-constructed lie for quite some time, but all lies have one thing in common. They all crack, they all fall apart, they fail.
Have been beheaded, right? But I would also say to you that what was broadcast by Hamas of Hamas slaughtering people and kidnapping people, I'm proudly boasting about it, something you seem to be smirking about. I'm just curious what you feel.
I'm smirking at you.
Why?
Because you are clearly being dishonest. If there were people, innocent people, anywhere, whether in Palestine or elsewhere, who were killed by a soldier, by anyone, that is, of course, unacceptable. But then these claims of systematic rape and these claims of these are dishonest claims. People have done hard work to prove that there is no evidence for these systematic rapes and beheadings. And these were used as propaganda to justify the beginning of this Holocaust in Gaza. And those who continue to make these
you talk about me being dishonest, Professor. You talk about me being dishonest, but what you've just said is an absolutely shocking example of dishonesty. Hamas didn't even try to hide what they did. They made no secret of their delight, their joy, their pride in what they were doing. Some of them rang family members back in Gaza to boast about what they'd just done, to old women, to children. And I'm just curious why you can't find yourself able to condemn this.
In the day and age, Piers, in the day and age when everyone has cameras and there are cameras all over the place, show us the evidence. Show us the evidence. Especially in Israel, which is a society which has cameras all over the place. But you don't have footage of any beheadings and you don't have any footage of any rape. I wonder why.
Well,
now we're going to pause here. There's more to the interview and more to that segment, but you have to show evidence. Evidence is key. And also, when you have people like Ryan Graham or Piers Morgan or any jagoff associated with the establishment media, they're all designed, they're all there to really try and project the news from a safe point of view, a clean cutter view, a way in which we don't really challenge the system, we just accept it. Now, I don't know if they're interested in being publicly humiliated, but we've seen them over and over again. People like Piers Morgan, Ryan Grimm, all the people at BSDNC and CNN constantly making asses out of themselves. This is why we need independent media. And does it come as not as a shock on why outlets like the Gray Zone, who are not only doing great work, but are constantly being dismissed by their peers because, in many ways, their colleagues in establishment media really don't have a leg to stand on. They have no firm footing because all the people in establishment media, they're not serious. They're not authentic. They're not real. They're fake. And they hold on to lies and they keep on spewing out lies, be it for forever wars, backing up politicians, looking out for their own agenda, of course, and enriching themselves, all the while having the monopoly over the algorithm on various social media platforms. We have to break away from the system and we have to look at corporate media for what it is. We now have to watch the news in order to find out where the lies are at and find the truths for ourselves. And I encourage you, my viewing audience, to do your own research. Check out different perspectives and points of view. The only way you're going to get to the truth is if you do it yourself. It starts with you.